Okay, so we're going to start today with the quadratics, reviewing all that stuff. Okay, so on your exam, you will get the formula sheet that I gave you at the very first day of school. I have one, so if you'd like to have that handy, that would be good.
Mine is in my
Okay, so on your formula sheet, you will find in the quadratic section this. Okay, that formula you will see on your formula sheet. So that's what we're going to use to connect the ideas to this, what's going on. Okay, so whenever I see a formula with a subtraction sign or a negative sign, it means to do the opposite. Okay? Do you understand that this number in the H position connects with the X? The K number connects with the Y. So as a coordinate, we always think X before Y, right? So what is the vertex with those two things in mind? I just said we're going to have to think opposite of this form. So it's going to be what, comma, what? Positive 1 and a negative 7. Remember that?
No.
Opposite. Because the formula, you will have that on your sheet. And then we think in the formula it says negative. So negatives mean opposite of what we're looking at. So positive 1, negative 7. So there's the vertex of my parabola. Positive 1, negative 7. Okay, the slope number is what value? The 2. It's the multiplier number. Okay, so 2 is the slope. Therefore, if 2 is the slope, which direction does it go? Yeah, if that number is positive, then it's going to be opening upward. Okay, so positive slope means I'm going to have my U open upward. Okay, the axis of symmetry. Do you remember what that is? It is the line that would cut it in half, if I could cut it in half. And therefore, it goes straight up and down. It's a vertical line. So how do we make an equation? X equals, and our X is going to cut through 1. Okay, the domain. Hopefully this is your freebie point on your exam, because what is the domain of any parabola? Goes out. Okay, the range is different on parabolas according to what it's doing. So if it's opening like this, it's going to go from some bottom height to infinity, right? So where do I find that bottom height? Negative 7 to infinity. Did you notice my bracket situation? I did an exact bracket there. Including. It goes to exactly that, yeah, including that, yeah. Okay, let's do transformations. Okay, So the transformations, did the parabola move right, left, up, down at all? If the vertex is over here, where has the vertex moved? Which direction does this move it? Right, 1. Where else does that vertex go? In words, where did it go now? Down 7. And does anybody remember what a slope of 2 does to the shape of it? Narrows it. And those are the 3 things that happened. No, it would if it's less than 1. So something like a half makes it go wider. The negative makes it flip. Yeah.
So basically, the larger the numbers, the narrower.
The skinnier it gets and skinnier it gets, yep. Okay, y-intercept. So what does a y-intercept even mean to you? In a general sense, not just for this. Where what is happening? Where x would be the number 0. Some of you are like, well, where it hits the y-axis. Well, yeah, but how? How do I find that? So on the y-axis, the x number is specifically 0. So can you make that happen? What are you going to do with that info now? If x is 0, I'm going to plug it in. Okay, that's just always the general idea with intercepts. If I want to get the x-intercept, I would make y 0. If I want the y-intercept, I make x 0. Okay, this is a test to your bed mass. Can you get me y? Do all your bed mass steps here. So brackets, then you square that. Then you times by 2, then you subtract 7. Okay, the last thing we need is to graph this. Okay, so I had a slope of 2. So what I'm going to do is what I call an over-up chart. Does anybody know the over-up chart of the original?
1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9.
You're squaring the x values. So if x was 3, you would have an up of 9. Okay, where do I apply the slope of 2 to this chart? I have a slope of 2, so it changes something with the chart.
The up.
The up, and I should do what kind of math with it? I'm going to multiply that by 2, so this is going to now be 2, 8, 18. So I'm going to go over 1, up 2. Guess what happened? It hit the y-axis at -5. Is that good? Yes. Almost every year, the exam, I get somebody who does the graph and somebody who does their math, and their y-intercepts are different. Obviously, something happened. So when you graph, I expect you to do 5 coordinates. So that's worth 10 points on your exam. This whole page is exactly on your exam, so. Okay, so the other one is this. So as I look on my formula sheet, what does this one look like? That's the format it looks like, because I have different types of equations I could put them in, and this was the one it looks like. So how do you find vertex in this form?
It's
Something over 2, that's part of it.
negative b. plus
Negative
some
b,
variable.
you have yours and yours put together.
It's not just negative.
Negative b over 2a.
Oh.
Yep, that's actually on your formula sheet as well. So general form is what I call this, and then you have to understand that is the strategy. Negative b over 2a. Okay, what would negative b now be? There's too many b's saying. Positive 6. I always think about it as the opposite, not negative. I just say, well, what's the opposite when I see negatives? So what's the opposite? And then 2 bracket, what would I do for the a there? Negative 1. So what does that make? Maybe without your calculator, could you think about that? So that would come out to be negative 3. So your vertex is negative 3, comma, then what do I do to get the next part of the vertex? So this is the x, so I would like to get the y. So what do you do if you have the x and need the y? What would you do? You would plug in. Okay, here's where the mistakes happen, because this is a negative of negative 3 squared. So think about how to do that. But this is a big common mistake on the test, plugging it in. So this is what it would look like, and this confuses people. It's the negative of negative 3 squared.
It's just 9. It's just negative 9.
So think about bed mass. What do you have to do first? You would have to do the squared. So what is negative 3 squared? 9. And then times by negative 1. So what does that come out to be? 6? Okay. So negative b over 2a, plug in. That's a big strategy for your exam. What is the slope number? Negative 1. Because I'm always looking at the, which letter? The A. Even in the first one, it was the A. I'm always looking at the A. Doesn't matter the form. So which direction will it open for me now? It's going to open like this. It's going to face like that, down. Axis of symmetry, so that cutting line. X equals negative 3. I'm guaranteeing you that 25% of you in this room are going to forget to write x equals. That's such a common thing. I even warn you, 25% of you are still going to forget to write x equals for some reason. So if somebody writes me negative 3, they're going to get it wrong. They're going to get points deducted, because what does negative 3 mean? It doesn't make a line. Domain, negative infinity to infinity. Range, I have to visualize it. So it's going to go from negative infinity to the height of 6. Okay, the y-intercept, sorry, I'm just writing this again because I don't have it on my screen. If I do the y-intercept, it means to do what again? Make x be 0. So what would happen if x was 0? All that stuff would 0 and I would get -3. Okay, so let's graph. And to graph, I also need to make sure I know what my over-up chart is. So I'm always starting with 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. And then we said that our slope was -1. Okay, so there's my vertex. And I'm going to do 1, 1 down, 2, 4 down, and that's good enough. I'm actually also going to throw my y-intercept on there to see if it makes sense. Because remember, always check, did your graph y-intercept match with your math y-intercept? Okay, so that page is worth 20 points on your exam, so I would highly suggest doing a few of those. That's a big chunk of points.
In general form, it's what we take, right?
Yep, in any form, it's just A, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, given x-intercepts are at 1 and 11, then where is your axis of symmetry? So if I had an x-intercept at 1 and at 11, where do you think I would have an axis of symmetry? What's the relationship? Where would it have to go? So think about this parabola being something like that. Where is the relationship? What are you looking for? Right in the middle. Okay. So x equals, how are you going to find that middle number? What's your strategy?
We'll add them and then divide them by 2.
Add them, 12, and average that makes 6. Okay, or you could say 1 to 11 is 10 apart, which means I'd have to go 5 down and 5 up. So 5 up is 6, 5 down is 6 to meet there, okay? Write a possible equation for the quadratic. Okay, so if I have an x-intercept of 1 and an x-intercept of 11, I'm going to work backwards because I know how to find x-intercepts. So can we work backwards? if I have an x-intercept of 1, what did I have in the line before that then? The factor x minus 1. The factor x minus 11. And before that, I would have had what? How do you factor? You're always looking for two numbers that do what and what? Multiply and add. So the trinomial would be x squared. How many x's? Negative 12x. And then what? Plus 11. Okay, that's just me foiling it, by the way, right? You can go boom, 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 foil it, or shortcut and understand, well, I factored by doing this to multiply to 11. What is wrong with what I've written? There's something missing.
Not equal to.
I'm going to go equals y. On this step, it would have been 0, but to finalize it, you need a y equals equation. A quadratic has a vertex of negative 1 comma 8. I'm kind of a visual person, so I'm drawing it. Negative 1, 8, and then there's another point at 1 comma 0. So my parabola obviously opens down, right? What do you already know about the slope? Negative slope. Can you tell me the path I took to get to that point? How much over did I jot over and how much did I jot down? Over 2, down 8. Okay, is that the path that I should have done? No. So if I go over 2, I should have gone up 4, but I actually went down 8, which means the slope would have been, slope is negative 2. Okay, now you have everything, you just need to have it plugged into the equation correctly. So don't forget what we had on our formula sheet. Okay, so I'm going to leave y, I'm going to leave x. X and y, they stay in there. I'm going to replace the slope into the a spot, so negative 2 is in the front like that. And when we plug them in, we need to think how. This says negative h. Opposite. So they're going to go in opposite. So which one goes into the h position? The 1 number or the 8 number? Which one? The 1. So is it a plus or minus 1? Plus 1. And with the y, I put the y number. So subtract 8. Opposite. Okay, every time I see a formula with a negative, everything's opposite. Okay, you are trying to max the area of this rectangular pen, and you have 1,000 feet of fence altogether. So this is a barn, so there's nothing there. So I'm going to start with putting some L's and W's on that. So can you just give me some L's and W's on there? You can put what you want. I'm going to go an L along the whole bottom. So then each of these walls I'm going to call my width. Okay, so what I have is 1,000 feet of fence all together. So all of that adds up to 1,000. Can you write me a math equation with that wording? All of that adds to 1,000. Okay, now our goal is to find the area of this thing. I want max area. So what is the area of a rectangle? You don't have this, you should know it. Length times width. Okay, so this is the problem. I can't work with this equation because there is 3 variables, too many variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these variables and substitute it in. Which variable looks easier to be alone? The L. Okay, don't forget when you put that together, I often get people writing me 997W. That doesn't make sense because you can't combine that, right? So make sure that doesn't happen. Can you now take this, and because it's equal to L, I'm going to replace it. And when I do replacements, I'm going to put some brackets on that. Is that legit in math? Does that make sense to replace something? Okay, so that's kind of the hard part. The rest is quadratic strategies. What should I do with this equation now? I should expand it out. And boom, you have an equation. Okay, that's our equation. So I want to find the max, which means this. Does that make sense? It's going to face this way because it's a -3 as slope. Did I trick you here? Because they're not written in the right order, right? So how do I find the vertex? This is a vertex. How do I find that vertex when my equation looks like this? So you did it on the first page. So here I'm going to go back to the first page. Do I do this strategy or do I do this strategy? Those are always your 2 options. It's this one. Okay, do you see the difference? HK strategy or -b over 2a strategy. Those are your 2 options with quadratic equations. With vertex, which is not to be mistaken soon by x-intercepts. So -b over 2a, comma, plug in. That's the idea of those. Okay, what are you going to replace -b with? -1,000. I don't have these in order. A is not the thing that goes first. A is how many x squareds do you have? B is how many x's do you have? Over 2 times A. Okay. So I got 166.67 confirmed. Good. Okay. What? What is that even talking about? Before we did it, it would have been considered what the x. So now what is it considered in this word problem? The w. Right? Instead of a w, or instead of an x, I have a w. Okay. So if I plug that in, I will get the what? The area. Do I want area? Nope. It says what dimensions? So I already have a W. Which means I need the other dimension on this field. Which means I want the length. So what am I going to do? I'm going to plug it in here. So I have it in my calculator already. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to times it by 3, which means that's 500 feet. I'm going to do this in my head. What's 1,000 minus 500? 500. Okay, the other word problem we're going to do is the revenue. So you're selling concert tickets and you're trying to make revenue. So let's write an equation. The revenue you make would be your ticket price times the people that come. Does that make sense to you? However much your ticket is times the amount of tickets you sell, your people, is your money. Okay, so give me 2 blank brackets like that, and then we're going to read and fill in. So you're selling concert tickets for $10. So 10 is in the ticket price. And then at this price, 500 people are coming. If you increase, so if you add the price by $1, 10 fewer people come. And what is wrong with what I did?
We need a variable.
You need a variable because if I increase this by $1, I don't know how many times I want to do that. So I might go up $2, $3, I don't know. But what happens to the people each time? Also. So if this goes up 2, this goes down 20. If this goes up 3, this has got to go down 30, right? Okay. What did we do when we hit this stage on the last word problem? We will FOIL. Can you do that correctly? Give me all 4 parts and you should be able to combine the OI. Yes, it will also be backwards. Let's see if you can do this. I feel like some of the mistakes are into this part of it. Just make sure you're taking your time and doing the 4 parts.
Ooh, that is not pleasant. The backward.
Okay, how did we go? Did we match? Okay, some of you might have changed it around just for your own brain, and that's fine. You can leave it like this. If you did change it around, I often see people forget the negative, and then it screws up everything. Okay, don't forget that you got to have a negative 10x squared if you're going to change it around. Okay, now what? We're trying to find the max revenue. How do we find a max? You find a vertex. How do you find a vertex when it looks like this? Negative b over 2a. So that is negative 400 over 2 negative 10. Did you get 20? So 20 is representing x. What does x even mean? It means how many times you change it. How many times you're going to change it. So if I make 20 changes, so if I increase by $1 20 times, how much money is my ticket price? I'm going to sell a $30 ticket. Okay? And that's the end. I don't have to plug in 20 because if I do, it will tell me the what? If I plug 20 in to the equation, it would tell me what? The revenue. So if my question says what is the largest revenue, you plug that in then, right? But this question just said what's the ticket price?